your Kitchener Rangers team. You guys made it to the Mem Cup. Obviously, an amazing team and roster, I'm sure. And just mentioning getting to the Mono Cup and losing in the final game to Spokane Chiefs in the WHL. Maybe you can talk about that experience and failure at the same time, I guess. But obviously,
that was devastating. Obviously, a team that for us, we were the hosts, so the big message for us was we wanted to come through the front door, not the back door, the whole year, right? So obviously, being a host, we would have been granted a spot in the tournament no matter what. But we won the OHL and we battled through and kind of came in the right way, in the proper way, right? I know that the 1 year Windsor lost in the first round, sat out 6-7 weeks, and then wins a Memorial Cup. So obviously a little bit of a different path, but for us it was we wanted to come in the front door and do things the right way, and we ran into a really defensive, full 4-line skilled Spokane Chiefs, and they got up by 1 or 2, and they trapped up that neutral zone and slowed down our speed, and they had a great goalie, and like I said, all 4 lines and 6D that were hard, Western League guys to play against, and it was a completely different game than we had ever experienced, in the OHL, and obviously different systems, different styles, a lot of different variables that came into the mix. I'd like to think that if we had Steve Mason in net, and no disrespect to Josh Eunice who was in net, but if we had a Calder Trophy goalie in net, I think we would have had a different outcome for us. But that's still a sore spot for me, and I've played with and against guys that were on that Spokane team, and they always love to give it to you, right? So I know David Rutherford was one Spokane guy. I played with him in Orlando, and he had the broken trophy as a tattoo on him, and every day that I came into the rink, it was just a reminder of what I didn't win. So after that, I didn't have an opportunity to win any championships after that. Teams that I were on didn't go overly deep in the playoffs, so that was one that just slipped away from me, and one that I'll definitely never forget.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about Chris Mason being your goalie. Was he injured at the time, or what?
Yes, Steve Mason. He played the first. Yeah, he played the first round against Sarnia. We beat Stamkos and them, and then he kind of came out and said my knee's really bothering me, and had surgery and was done for the year. So a little bit of adversity for our team, but Josh Eunice played well in the coming rounds, and we went to 7 in the finals against Belleville and ended up bringing it home. And then once again we did well in the but they were just a deep team that played a different style than we were used to, and we couldn't get by them.
Who was the coach for Spokane, and some of the, I guess, players that the followers might recognize of names from that Spokane team?
Oh,
you remember?
Well, the goalie's name, I can't remember his name. David Rutherford was the forward.
Yeah.
You talked about Glass was the one other guy. There was a big name that I'm forgetting, tall, baby-faced guy, and he was just nasty. Memories, obviously a little shot. Once again, we had touched on the fighting aspect of my career, so the memories might not be there, but I remember losing that game.
Yeah. Okay. And then also too with your team, who else other than Kadri and Bodker, who else was on your team that?
So our first line was Justin Azevedo, who was the CHL Player of the Year. He had, I think, 130 points that year. Nick Spaulding was on last, again, played in the NHL, Nashville, the Leafs, San Jose. Matt Halischuk was on right wing, so Team Canada, World Juniors, played in the NHL for Nashville, New Jersey. Scott Timmins was on the third line at center. He ended up playing in the NHL with Florida, San Jose. Brandon Mashinter was on the third line, ended up playing in the NHL with New York. Played in the American League for a while. I think he's in the DL now. And then Yannick Weber on the point. So obviously NHL caliber D-man. And then after that, there wasn't too many guys that ended up playing in the NHL or pro. But those are some big names. That's a lot of the core roster for sure. I'm sure even some guys that were really good players on that run just decide not to play professionally, maybe go to school. There's a lot of different options that come up, I'm sure. Yeah, a lot of guys took advantage of their school package. Guys that went to Ryerson, guys that went to Western. Our captain, Matt Pepe, went to UBC. So lots of guys utilized that school package. And if they didn't make pro, they found a way to. So.
Yeah. So another question from that run after losing in that game. What, I guess personally from your perspective, what were you going through? From losing that game, the disappointment, frustration over it. But like, are you able to share with these players? There's many players out there that will reach the finals, and there's always two teams, and one team loses. So these other players will be in your shoes. Like, if you could, give them advice of how to move on to the next step after losing a big Memorial Cup game like that.
Yeah, luckily for me, I had signed at the beginning of the year. So for me, it wasn't like questioning, hey, is that going to affect, am I going to get signed? Am I going to be going into a camp as a free agent? I had a little bit of an easier path after that, right? So I knew where my home was going to be for the next 3 years, whether that was Florida, Rochester, or in the ECHL with their affiliate team. So for me, obviously, I sat in my stall and buried my head, and that was the last chance I was going to get to win a Memorial, play with those. And that was probably the best, most tight team that I've ever played on. And a lot of guys will say that about championship teams that they've played on, but I can truly say that it was probably the closest team that I've ever played on. We kind of sat around for the week and all dwelled on it, wondering what happened, where did we go wrong? But at the end of the day, it was over, right? For me, I knew that I was never going to get that opportunity again, and that was the most upsetting part for me. But like I just mentioned, I knew where I was going to be, and I knew what I was going to be doing over the course of the summer, and I had something to work towards. So I just kind of got right back to it and got into the gym and started getting my mind ready for the next season, because there was no sense for me dwelling on what I can't change and what happened in the past. And I just wanted to have a positive forward outlook moving into my pro career, and that's what I did.
Yeah, a lot of young kids probably think about not even just losing the final of the Mem Cup, but just some sad times or frustrating. They think that these people fully dwell on things for long periods of time. Not always is that the case at all. Some guys are able to move on a lot faster than others. But yeah, just like you mentioned earlier in this conversation, going into the Orlando dressing room and seeing the tattoo on David Rutherford's shoulder or body or whatever it is, you saw the broken cup, and it still lives with you today. That experience and maybe that feeling of disappointment of what you went through. But now looking back after 20 NHL games, a great career, it gave you that experience, I guess, and that that tough time to go through to make you stronger through your pro career and now who you are today.
Absolutely, and with the team that I'm currently with Okanagan, we're still jumping on Zoom, and we have different presentations that we give our guys, and the most recent one was on success. So the first slide shows a straight road with no veers off to the side, and the end result said success. And then the picture beside it had turns and winds and ups and downs and stop and fail and fall, and then at the end of that road there was success. So obviously there's not too many people that have that straight road with no failures or no adversity and don't really know how to have any resiliency. But I think with what happened with me through being drafted later as I expected into the OHL, not being drafted into the NHL, losing in the Memorial Cup finals, it was all for me just a little bit more fuel on the fire. And I was already pretty fiery, so I don't know if I needed any more fuel, but it was a little bit more fuel for me to push and get what I wanted out of hockey. And that was obviously to play in the NHL. And as we mentioned before, whether it was 1 game, 2 games, 18 or 800, it still happened at the end of the day. I was able to sit on the bench and have the best seat in the house. So
yeah, great. Very cool. We all, even these kids not just playing in the NHL or pro hockey, they're dreaming of playing in the WHL, OHL, in the Q, and just that you played with many great teammates. You had a great junior career, but to play for the Mem Cup, what a crazy week or 2 weeks that probably would have been. Just a lot of kids' dreams to play.
Absolutely. Like we were hosting too, like I said, right? So police escorts to the games, like it was like we were the president. So it was a really cool experience. We would have blown the roof off had we had won, and I know that was the case, but it is what it is. And like you had mentioned, like it's still talking about it right now, still feels like I lost yesterday. So it is out of my head on a day-to-day basis, but when we bring it up, it still hurts a bit.